Hello, world. These are the adventures of Superchic. I'm Cecelia Sterling, and I have a story to share. So, last week I talked about my daughter going back to school in a school that we found in a movie-like story. And you know how when you have big decisions to make in your life, it almost is your own movie, right? There's weekly episodes, you have different lessons you learn along the way. They're big decisions. It's a big deal. And each person involved has their own storyline going. So my daughter's going to she's the main character in her story about finding a new school and starting off in kindergarten. And then I'm the main character in my story, which is ushering her into this next phase of life, right? And if you step back, that macro vision is like someday she'll go to middle school and high school and college potentially and travel the world or whatever she wants to do, and everything will be fine. And she will have gone to kindergarten. It won't be that big of a deal. And I have all the grace and confidence in the world when it comes to that macro view. But the micro view of where will she go and where are we going to live and what's most important to us and who will be in her class and when are we going to find out and when is the paperwork due and who do I submit it to and is that micro weekly episode in this saga of my daughter going to kindergarten. Hence, I have a show to share with you. So this particular part of this saga has to do with money. And if you'll recall, last winter I shared a story, I think we called it Downhill Skiing, where I was fully in my financial fear, shaking in my ski boots. And around that time, I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do for her for school for the following year. And someone points out the school across the street as an option, a private option where it's not attached to where we live, which is one of the things I'm trying to address, but haven't yet. And you know, some things are right there and they need to be pointed out to you. Well, this was the case for this particular school. And I was like, well, immediately into my resistance and, limiting beliefs of like, we can't afford that. We could never go to a private school. No. And as I'm literally, it's almost like the person took my face and went like this and said, look at this school across the street. And did you know they have financial aid? Oh, I didn't know that. And I think they might still have room for next year. I also assumed that it was full. Assumed. Okay, well, I need to then honor the fact that I've been pointed in this direction and take a step. So I call and they invite us in for a visit, which is, I literally feel like butterflies are released upon our entry. And this young person walks up to us and says, hello, I just want to introduce myself and welcome you here today. And I tear up. I think he's in 4th grade at the time. Oh, his little uniform sweater. Well, this buddy is the son of my daughter's preschool teacher from last year. Remember how important I say community is to me and to us? What a sweet young person. I mean, he didn't even seem nervous. It seemed so natural to him to come over and shake our hand and welcome us to his school. And I just kind of overwhelmed with like cuteness, to be quite honest, and a feeling of safety and kind of belonging. And so I have a smile on my face, and as I leave, my daughter and I talk about how wonderful that visit was, and in the back of my mind, I still feel this is impossible. But let's see, right? I know everything is actually possible. And so I take my daughter to her other school and come back to talk to the woman in the office. who is just great. She reminds me of my cousin. There's a little boy that's not feeling well, and so she talks to him and takes his temperature, and I get to experience like how she takes care of a kid in her office if they're not feeling well. And it was so like I would, or my aunt would, or right, like just feels a little familial, very safe. And I'm talking to her, I have a couple of questions, and then I whisper, we would need financial aid. And she says, what? I couldn't hear you. And I say, we would need financial aid for her to attend the school. And I am just in all of my financial insecurity, right? And like this certain part of me that feels like two false beliefs. One, if I had enough money, everything would be fine. No problems. And there's something wrong with me based, or like I'm not enough because I don't make enough or whatever. I mean, it's so big and so long and so deep. I'm healing it one step at a time. But I'm in that as I'm standing there. And I'm also a confident woman who has a daughter who's going to go to the best possible school for her. And I'm in that too. I can literally feel all the feelings right now as I describe those different aspects of me standing at the counter. And the woman says, okay, we have financial aid packages and it all goes through this certain, I don't know, like almost like an organization where you apply to them, they process all the information, and then they use the certain equation, and then they tell the school how much you qualify for, and that's it. It's not about merit, or it's not something you apply for, anything beyond the numbers. And I was like, okay, very straightforward, not emotional, right? Okay, great. And she's not in any kind of judgmental space as I'm standing there. So again, I feel I belong in this room. I feel safe. I'm feeling more and more confident as I talk to her. She kind of debunks my little fear bubble, which is great, pops it. And I go home and I look at the application. It is the most comprehensive financial aid application I have ever filled out. And I filled them out in the past and had a lot of fear and anxiety in those experiences. And I didn't today. All of a sudden, the fact that I haven't made much money over the last year is a benefit. Talk about a twist or a reframe, right? All of a sudden, like my stress around like my new car payment that I'm considering as I look at a new lease being really high is potentially in this particular conversation going to help me pay a little less for school. All comes out in the wash. I don't know. So my little fear bubbles are kind of getting popped left and right as I fill out the application. And it's easy to fill out. It's easy to like log in and password situation and re-log in, which is rare. And I'm just honestly kind of having a good time. As I sit with my financial reality, there are literally fireworks right now, which is to me the divine in my life and in my show. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm having a really good time right now while I fill out a financial application during a time where I am feeling a lot of financial insecurity. That's amazing. Not to mention the underlying story of when you ask for help, you often receive it. I have just been given a pathway for assistance to potentially get my daughter to a really good school, which is exactly what I want, with a feeling of community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Meanwhile, week by week, there's these different things that pop up, right, on our pathway to getting her to whatever school she's going to be attending in the fall. There's a lot of uncertainty I'm not really comfortable with. And it's like deadline after deadline that I've set for myself as being really important are just going by. Like my calendar is insignificant on this path. It does not matter that I really wanted to move by February and just register her for the local school in that area, right? And just have all this be non-issue. That's not happening. And now I believe that's because that was not the best possible school for her at that time. So I get the results from the application and I get a call from the school. And the woman says, so you're not getting any aid. And I'm curious if you really filled out the application accurately. And she brought up a few categories where I, to be quite honest, had overlooked. And she said, why don't you make sure you really filled it out completely before we send it in to find out how much aid you qualify for? Because you said you needed it, and now it's looking like you don't need it. So have you answered these questions accurately? And so I go in and I had not. There were like medical cost questions that I had just overlooked. Isn't that weird? That like when I needed help with something, and even as I had a good time and started to feel confident, I did answer a bunch of the straightforward questions, but I missed some. And I had so appreciated how comprehensive the application was, but some of those questions that weren't so obvious, like what is my mortgage each month, I overlooked them. And the very fact that they were there was the application's attempt or the organization's attempt at getting a very realistic picture of your financial world and seeing if you actually need aid, right? So I kind of stepped on my own foot without realizing it. And then the universe said, let's look at that again. How much do I belong in this room? How safe do I feel having this conversation? I am no longer whispering the statement, I need financial aid. I am now applying for financial aid and trying to receive it. I still don't even have to go to the school, right? This is just one of the many steps within my saga of getting my daughter to whatever school I have prayed serves her highest good. So I'm not even attached to it being this school, just putting one foot in front of the other as I'm asked. And so I go back in, and now I really do have even more confidence, and I have a little more time, and I look at some of these other, like, how much do we really spend beyond our premium in medical expenses? It's a lot, which leads me to a whole other story about medical insurance, but that will be another story for another day. And there's other categories too. I'm actually going back to work. I actually will have childcare costs. Oh, like didn't fill that part out. Like this is for the upcoming year, and it is okay to make projections. So I complete the application, and it comes back to me that we will receive some financial aid. There's a package available to us. And you know what's really funny? It's not as much aid as I had hoped for. But you know what's really funny? It means that we're going to spend about the same amount of money at this school as we did last year. Now, it was a struggle to pay for that school. We also paid for it, period. Even to the point where, funny enough, not the last month of the monthly payments for the preschool, but like one or two before, I thought I missed. And they had changed their process in giving you reminders. And so I thought that they just didn't give me a reminder. And I was pretty nervous about it. And I was like, the last month of the school year is a shorter month. So I was just going to pay that month, even though money wasn't due that month. So by the time Lillian was done with school, I would have paid in full, but I was going to need another like 60 days for this one particular payment. Talk about girl math. And I worked with my security around, again, this is all happening around the same time. Turns out at the end of the year, I say, okay, I'm really sorry that I missed one payment along the way, and I'm going to make that today. And they said, you didn't miss any payments. So it's another one of my gazillion reminders. I have more money than I realize. And it could be 5 cents that you need for the meter to not get a $75 ticket. Or it could be a payment you already made and you didn't realize. Or it could be, oh my gosh, we're actually getting a tax refund this year and we didn't realize. When we are in our fear, when I am in my fear, I can't see all my blind spots, and the amount of them increases. My fear is a blinder, in a sense. And there really is this abundance of strategy, solution, possibility in my life, and dare I say it, in yours. And please let this be a reminder. Because as we go to school on the first day of school, my daughter is confident and comfortable, as am I. We feel we belong, which is another story I'm going to share. We feel we're in the right place, and over the first few weeks, that is nothing but confirmed. I'm so grateful I had the bravery and courage to say out loud I needed financial aid, to fill out the application and revisit it before filing, and allow for the support and guidance that appeared along the way in what I was judging as a saga, which really just was a big transition in our lives, a big decision to make. And of course, we had some insecurity and some uncertainty around that. It's important to us, right? So with that, I will say ciao for now. I'm Cecelia Sterling, and these are the adventures of Superchic. I am sending you all the grace in your decision making. I hope you find us in the right way on the right day.